Hey everyone, I'm Cami Smith and I'm the Communications Director. Welcome to Blue Ridge Online. Today we are going to press pause on our Metamorphosis series and we are going to walk through the book of Jonah together in a very new way. Now, we've all heard the book of Jonah as we were children or told to us throughout the years in the Bible, but this time we want to pull the curtain back and look at some of the stories that may have surrounded that experience. And as we tell them, just to let you know that this particular video has been marked PG. So just something for you to know as you proceed forward. So let's take a journey on the book of Jonah together.
Oftentimes, when we read the Bible or when the Bible is presented, it's presented like a collection of nice, neat children's stories. There's evil, and evil always does evil things. And there's good, and they're the ones we should always be rooting for. And in the end, often we're given this nice, neat, satisfying resolution. But in reality, when you read Scripture, this isn't the case. See, the Bible is full of real people living real lives, just like today. The same person can do both good and bad. People who claim to be good can do and act in evil ways. Even those, as many of us have seen, who carry the name of God follower can be hypocritical in their actions, just as an evil person can have redeemable characteristics. It's one of the things that I love about Scripture. It doesn't shy away from the complexity of the human race. See, the familiar Sunday school Bible stories we grew up hearing can often rob us of the gritty, messy, complex human condition we find all throughout the pages of the Bible. And there probably isn't a story in the Bible that this is more true of than that of Jonah. You see, even when I say Jonah, what do you think of? You think of Jonah and the whale, right? It's a children's story. In fact, if you're a parent, there's a good chance you have a nice, cute Jonah and the whale picture book, along with the matching bath accessory. But as you'll see today, the full account of Jonah is anything but a story for kids. That being said, the account of Jonah is full of stereotypical characters of a nice, neat Bible story. You have the good guy, Jonah, a prophet, a man who speaks to people on behalf of God. You've got the unnamed bystanders, these sailors, these guys normally known for their hard, crude, and crass lifestyle. You've got the bad, evil man, the king of Nineveh, the one in charge of the most evil, powerful empire of its day. But what we're going to see is these stereotypical characters responding in very non-stereotypical ways. The good guy, Jonah, the prophet, he ends up mad, angry, some might even say hating God. The unnamed bystanders, these sailors, known for their hard, crude, and crass lifestyle, end up showing a surprisingly soft side. And this evil, bad king, the king of Nineveh, he ends up humbling himself and leading his people towards revival. Stereotypical characters responding in non-stereotypical ways. But where does this all begin? It begins with a call by God to Jonah. Get up and go, Jonah, to the great city of Nineveh. Announce my judgment against it because I have seen how wicked its people are. Now, when God says to Jonah, the Ninevite city is wicked, he means it. Nineveh was truly a wicked place. Nineveh was an Assyrian city, and the Assyrians were known worldwide as a ruthless people. When conquering a new people group, they were notoriously brutal, known for things like decapitating their enemies and turning a huge heap of heads into a giant pyramid. They would skin and impale their enemy corpses on stakes. For added humiliation, they would strip POWs naked before killing them. And if they happened to spare their enemies' lives, it wasn't uncommon for the Assyrians to amputate hands and feet or gouge out their eyes. And God was calling Jonah to go and announce his judgment against this truly wicked and brutal people group. But instead of obeying God, what does Jonah do? He heads to the port city of Joppa and boards a boat for the city of Tarshish, a city thousands of miles away in the exact opposite direction as Nineveh. So the prophet of God, the good guy, is literally going in the complete opposite direction that God commands him to go. This would have been understandable if Jonah's motivation to run was out of fear, right? Fear of saying, hey, powerful, scary people of Nineveh, a God I doubt you know and one I'm sure you don't worship is coming against you because of your wickedness. Fear makes sense. But as we'll see in a while, his motivation for running wasn't fear. So buying a ticket for Tarshish, Jonah boards the boat hoping to escape from God. Again, can you hear the irony of that statement? Jonah the prophet wants to escape from God. But as the boat that Jonah boards gets out to sea, God sends this violent storm. This storm that threatens to break apart the ship.
All of a sudden, the skipper comes up over the loudspeaker. He says, rogue wave, rogue wave. This is like the second boat I've ever been on, you know, in Alaska. That's out in the Barents Sea. The same ocean they filmed The Deadliest Catch. And I'm looking around, I said, rogue wave. Buzz that window. I looked out the window just in time to see that thing filled with water. And man, I mean, it filled with water. It folded me right over poof, I was folded over the table that held all the squid, and in water, it just filled that wall up. Blew Buzz right across the boat. Everybody else is hanging on, you know. Man, when one comes in sideways like that, sometimes you don't even see them. They're just on you, you know. And that sunk a lot of boats out there, though, that kind of, when the ocean acts like that, you know. I'm Dale Etheridge. In '89, I went up to Alaska following my brother. And he promised me adventure and a lot of money on fishing boats. Out in the Barents Sea, if a big storm does hit, there ain't no fishing to be done because it's just too rough to be on the deck. It's too dangerous. When you're out there in the wintertime, you know, it's cold and seawater will freeze. And then you're getting all this ice build up on the front of the boat and on the top of the boat. And, you know, it doesn't matter how crappy it is out there. You gotta, when it gets so thick, it makes the boat too top heavy. So you got to get out there with sledgehammers and baseball bats and actually tie yourself to something out there because you're walking on a sheet of ice, but you got to get that ice off. So you're going out there and you're banging ice sometimes almost a foot thick and getting it off the boat. So yeah, you're up there on the bow. The bow's the worst because it's taking all the sea mist, you know, and freezing. So, you know, you got all that stuff going up high all the way up the masses, you know, and man, you tie yourself off something and start beating that stuff off. And man, you sink down into a swell and into the trough of nothing but water around you, you know. Sometimes you can see fish swimming in that water. And all you see is water. You look straight up and you can see sky, and that's it. And sometimes they get to rolling over the top. If that's fouled up by a good heavy wind, then even if they're 20 to 30 footers, they're chopped up on top of each other a lot harder. And the top of the waves are blowing off because the wind is curling them over a little bit. And that really starts pounding your boat. Man, when we hit waves like that, it would just shiver the whole boat. And you could feel the deck and everything just vibrating. And that's when you really hope they put the boat together real good. But I gotta tell you, when all that's said and done and everything's back to normal, we're safe, your adrenaline is topping out, man. You know, this is do or die. Man, that is so exciting, man. The main thing about any boat is to keep it upright. Being out there tossed around on a wooden plank boat, that's every wave you're hearing these things crack and flex, and one wave, you're waiting for one wave to the next where this thing's all blow apart, So they'd have to weight the bottom, They may throw a lot of stuff off the top, or they may move it to the bottom, and keep it into the waves, You do not want to get sideways. You take waves over the side, you ain't gonna take too many before it fills up. And most of the sails are already down, because if you got high winds, you're just gonna break your boat up, right? Man, that'd be scary. Man, that'd be scary.
So it's in the middle of this storm that we meet our unnamed bystanders, the sailors. And the first thing that we come to know about this group is this storm is so big, so violent, that these hardened, experienced sailors are fearing for their lives. These sailors are so convinced this storm is gonna sink their ship. They're taking any and every action they can, no matter how extreme, doing things like throwing all the cargo they're being paid to transport overboard, praying to their pagan gods to save them. They're even casting lots, which in our day would be akin to rolling dice or flipping a coin or going to a palm reader. What they want to know is who among them has offended the gods. And interestingly enough, all the lots these sailors cast point towards Jonah. So these scared sailors start bombarding Jonah with questions. Questions like, who are you? What's your line of work? What country do you come from? What is your nationality? Why has this awful storm come down on us? What God have you wronged? To which Jonah replies, I'm a Hebrew who worships the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the land, and I am attempting to run from him. Now, when these pagan sailors hear these words and see the storm that Jonah's God has sent, they're even more terrified. And they ask him more of a rhetorical question: why on earth did you do this? But since the storm was getting worse and worse by the second, they ask him a second question: what can we do to stop this storm? Now listen to what this man of God says next. Jonah answers, throw me into the sea. I know it's my fault, so throw me into the sea, and this storm that threatens to rip this boat apart and kill all of us will cease. Listen to how selfish and cowardly Jonah is being. Jonah doesn't offer to ask his God for forgiveness. Jonah doesn't humble himself before God saying, okay, I'll obey. He doesn't even have the decency to offer to throw himself overboard. Jonah asks these men to bear the burden of throwing him into this raging sea. But these pagan sailors want no part of this. And they try even harder to row back to land, but this storm is just too strong. So finally, with no choice left, listen to what these hardened sailors say to Jonah's God. Listen to the softness of their hearts. Then they cried out to the Lord, Jonah's God. "Oh Lord," they pleaded, "don't make us die for this man's sin. And don't hold us responsible for his death. Oh Lord, you have sent this storm upon him for your own good reasons." Then the sailors picked Jonah up and threw him into the raging sea, and the storm stopped at once. The sailors were awestruck by the Lord's great power, and they offered him a sacrifice and vowed to serve him. Stereotypical characters acting in non-stereotypical ways. Get this, the sailors worship while the prophet runs. The sailors, they worshiped while the prophet Jonah ran. But God, he wasn't finished with Jonah yet. And as Jonah sinks into the dark abyss, into certain death, God sends a great fish to swallow Jonah up. And it's there in the belly of that great fish that Jonah remains for the next 3 days and 3 nights until he comes somewhat to the end of himself. You see, while Jonah never actually says he's sorry for not obeying God, he does worship him in the belly of that fish for saving his life and commits to fulfill his vow.
I cried out to the Lord because of my affliction, and he answered me out of the belly of Sheol. Lord, hear your people. Is your sight on me? You threw me into the deep, into the heart of the sea, waves crashing all over me. I thought I was gonna die. The waters are so high, I can't distinguish the tears when my eyes don't comfort. My lungs hurt, even worse. Will I get back to the church? Alone, so far gone. Death had me on the menu, and yet you saved me from the jaws of death. Receive my song, receive my praise, receive my sacrifice. I will fulfill my vow. I don't know how, but I'll try for the rest of my life. You're my salvation. You came to my rescue. You're so patient, and I thank you. You heard my cry.
And then out of this moment, God does something quite comical. He has this fish vomit Jonah up onto the shore. Now, once on shore, God again commands Jonah to go. He says, Jonah, get up and go to the great city of Nineveh and deliver the message I have given you. So this time, Jonah obeys. And when he arrives at the city, we're told just how great of a city Nineveh is. It's a city so large, it would take someone 3 days to walk through. Now, Jonah, he makes it somewhere around a day into the city. So about a third of the way through. And here's a message from God that Jonah delivers to the people of Nineveh. 40 days from now, Nineveh will be destroyed. That's it. 8 English words. 40 days from now, Nineveh will be destroyed. It's actually only 5 words in Hebrew. Now notice all that's missing. There's no mention of why it will be destroyed, what they've done wrong. There's no mention of how it will be destroyed or how they can keep it from being destroyed. And maybe most surprising, this prophet from God doesn't even mention God. It's almost like Jonah doesn't want them to listen. It's almost like this man of God wants these people to be destroyed. But with just these 5 words, God does something miraculous. Despite Jonah's seemingly half-hearted obedience, the people of Nineveh start to respond. In fact, the words of Jonah's message reach this powerful, wicked, evil, ruthless king. And listen to how he responds. When the king of Nineveh heard what Jonah was saying, he stepped down from his throne, took off his royal robes, he dressed himself in a burlap sack and sat in a heap of ashes. Then the king and his nobles sent a decree throughout the entire city. No one, not even the animals from your herds and flocks, are to eat or to drink anything at all. People and animals alike must wear garments of mourning, and everyone must pray earnestly to God. They must turn from their evil ways and stop all their violence. Who can tell? Perhaps even yet, God will change his mind and hold back his fierce anger from destroying us. The king and all the people humble themselves before God, hopeful that God will extend to them what they've withheld from so many others: mercy. And guess what? when God saw what they had done and how they had put a stop to their evil ways, he changed his mind and did not carry out the destruction he had threatened. The end, right? A nice, neat children's story, and everyone lives happily ever after, correct? Jonah is so excited to be used by God in this way. He spends the next few days worshiping God along with all the people of Nineveh, right? Well, not exactly. This change of plans greatly upsets Jonah. He's enraged. He's so mad at God, he complains to him. And listen to what comes out of this prophet's mouth. Didn't I say before I left home that you would do this, Lord? This is why I ran away to Tarshish. I knew that you are a merciful and compassionate God, slow to get angry and filled with unfailing love. You are eager to turn back from destroying people. Just kill me now, Lord. I would rather be dead than alive if what I predicted will not happen. See, Jonah didn't run from God because he was afraid. He didn't run because he was afraid of the brutality of the people of Nineveh. He didn't run because he was scared for his life. He ran because he knew God would use his message to change these people. Jonah, who is this prophet of God's, is mad because he knows God is merciful and compassionate, slow to anger and full of unfailing love. He knew that God wasn't eager to destroy this great city, but to save it. So Jonah's so mad at God, he states he would rather be dead if God's going to allow these people to live. I would rather have you kill me, God, if you aren't going to kill these people. Now, with what's going to happen next, it seems like Jonah is holding out some sort of hope that God will still destroy these people. It seems like Jonah's unconvinced that these people have authentically changed. Because rather than just leave and go back home, Jonah moves outside the city to a nearby hill, waiting to see what might happen, if God may still destroy the city of Nineveh. But then, this strange thing happens. As Jonah sits outside the city, waiting and hoping that God will destroy it, God causes a plant to grow and cover Jonah with shade. Now, this plant and the shade it produces makes Jonah extremely happy because it's so hot outside. But then the next morning, God allows a worm to come and eat and destroy this same plant, causing Jonah to get angry all over again. In fact, in his discomfort, it makes him so mad that he asks God once again to kill him. But then God asks Jonah a simple question. Is it right for you, Jonah, to be so angry because this plant died? To which Jonah retorts, yes, even angry enough to die. And then the story ends with this. Then the Lord said, you feel sorry about this plant, though you did nothing to put it there. It came quickly and died quickly. But Nineveh has more than 120,000 people living in spiritual darkness, not to mention all the animals. Shouldn't I, Jonah, feel sorry for such a great city? See, this whole plant incident was meant to be a lesson for Jonah. God was pointing out to Jonah that if it's okay for you, Jonah, to get all emotional about this plant that was there for one day, what about these people? These babies, these kids, these teenagers, these newlyweds, these grandparents, in that great city you want me to destroy. God asked Jonah if it's okay for me to feel the same way you felt about this plant for 120,000 people in the city of Nineveh. Aren't people, Jonah, more important than a plant? And then the book of Jonah ends there. So what's the point? Because we aren't even given Jonah's response to God's question. Well, here's the deal. Jonah's response isn't what's important. It's not the point. You see, just like the guys from the YouTube channel, The Bible Project, point out, the whole point of the story of Jonah is to mess with you and me, the readers of the story. See, God's questions here to Jonah is really a question for us. Are we okay with God loving our enemies? See, this book, this story, this historical account is meant to hold a mirror to you and to me, revealing the Jonah in all of us. So let me finish by asking some questions. Who's your Nineveh? Who do you see as the enemy? This season has highlighted a lot for us. Is it the far left or the far right? Or is your enemy those who sit in the middle that seem spineless? Is it the rioter or the redneck? Is it the group of people or that single person? Is it the person who hurt you or that person you've watched hurt others? Is it Black Lives Matter or All Lives Matter? Who is your enemy? And are you okay with God loving them? Let me take this even further to Jesus' own words, which we find in Matthew chapter 5. And you may be saying, Jeremy, why do we have to keep talking about all of this? Well, I'll make you a deal. I'll stop talking about it when we start living it out radically. When we start living Jesus' words. See, Jesus said this. You've heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Who's your enemy? Are you okay, not just with God loving them, but with God loving them through you? How do we do this? How do we love our enemy? Well, Paul tells us very clearly in 1 Corinthians 13, he says, love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Now replace your name with love. Is that true of the way you treat your enemy? Jeremy is patient with his enemy. Jeremy is kind to his enemy. Jeremy does not envy his enemy. Jeremy does not boast. Jeremy is not proud towards his enemy. Jeremy doesn't dishonor his enemy. Jeremy is not self-seeking. Jeremy is not easily angered. Jeremy keeps no records of wrong. Jeremy does not delight in evil, but rejoices in truth. Jeremy always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Is this how Jeremy loves his enemy? Are we okay with loving our enemies like that? Let me ask the question again that God's asked throughout the entire book of Jonah. Are you okay with God loving your enemy through you?
God is patient. God is kind. He does not envy. He does not boast. His ways are higher than our own. His thoughts consume the great unknown. And this alone I am sure, our God is love.
God, they don't fill me with fear. What scares me is how you might ask me to love them. Do you understand what they've done? Do you see what they are doing? They are hurtful and hate-filled. What if my love is mistaken for apathy or even worse, endorsement?
God is patient. God is kind. He does not envy. He does not boast. His ways are higher than our own. His thoughts can
What if they prosper? What if they succeed? How can I be expected to be patient, to be kind, to keep no record of wrong?
He is Almighty God, Elohim, maker of the earth. He is the Lord of hosts, heaven's King, shining over all. His kingdom stands above every power, every living soul. His love is like the sun, ever true, shining over all. He is Almighty God, Elohim, maker of the earth. He is the Lord of hosts, heaven's King, shining over all. His kingdom stands above every power, every living soul. His love is like the sun, ever true, shining over us.
God, it doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem right. Why do they get a pass? Why it feels like I bear all
God is
the responsibility.
patient. God is kind. He does not envy. He does not boast. His ways are higher than our own. His thoughts consume the great unknown. In this alone I am sure our God is love.
Thank you for joining us today online as we walked through the story of Jonah in a new way, and maybe a difficult way for some of us who are now answering that question. What does it look like to allow God to love our enemies through us? And so I do ask that you prayerfully consider this question over the next week. If you do have any questions about today's service, we encourage you to send those to us, and you can find our contact information as well as anything else about Blue Ridge on our website, including giving, how to step into community, and then even how to attend in person. And so we hope you guys have a great week, and we'll see you here next week at Blue Ridge Online.